Hello, everyone. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. This is our opportunity to spend time with everyone at least once a month and talk about what's going on in the world of marketing. What are people doing to grow their businesses? And also, especially as we think about today's topic, we're going to be talking about how to make it kind of easier to run your business, how to make sure that the processes that you have in place, how to make sure that the way that you run your business is not only fulfilling, but you start to find a little bit of your groove. Because what can happen for many of us when we're running a business, when we're running an organization, as we are, getting used to the day-to-day work that has to happen for us to get things done, we can feel the stress. We can feel the pressure of what we have to get done, what we haven't gotten done. Sometimes we're bringing some emotion or some things to the party as well. And what we often need is a way to kind of feel the relief. We need a way to reset things. And what I wanted to do today is kind of walk everyone through 7 different ways that you can really make running your business a lot easier and hopefully bring back maybe some of that joy into running our businesses. Because for many of us, when we started running our businesses, we were super excited. We were fired up. We would just love the idea that, we're going to be able to do something great, help people change the world. But then we got kind of overwhelmed by the day-to-day work. We get overwhelmed by just the task and the stuff and the tech you had to learn. And you can get to a point where you get stuck in a rut. So I'm hoping for any of you out there that have felt that, have maybe gone through that ebb and flow, today can give you some ideas or things that you could do in the future to continue to make sure that you kind of bounce back maybe faster, and in some cases, maybe find a way to not only take care of you better, take care of your business better, but make sure that your business still continues to have that excitement and joy that you had when you first started. All right, so we're going to walk through 7 different tips, 7 different ideas. And this is really just things that I've done, things that I've tried, things that my clients have tried and done. These are just all different ideas, and I wanted to make sure I gave you some practical things today. Now, for some of you who may not know me, this is maybe your first webinar or first time we get to hang out. Just so you're aware, I've been vegan for almost, I can't believe it's 17 years. The number sounds so big. I was doing the math earlier and I was like, whoa, it's been a minute. And I bring that up because what I do is really about how I really see the world, and I really see how, being a vegan, being a person that's really connected to animals, really connected to helping people kind of be a better version of themselves and making sure the things we do improve our world and improve our lives, really kind of flows through into not only what I talk about from a marketing standpoint, but from a business standpoint, is that ethics and that kind of thought process is what I'm going to pull through any recommendations I give to you. Because yes, there's ways that we can run businesses. Yes, there's ways we can fight for the bottom line. Yes, there's ways that, there's businesses out there that we won't talk about that we all just shake our heads at. The idea is that us as vegans, we can run businesses that we're proud of. We can run businesses that align with our ethics, and we can run businesses that change the world. And what I hope to do in these webinars and all the other things I do is help support individuals that share that same vision with me. All right. So let's jump into tip number 1 to kind of kick things off. So number 1 that I have here on the list is the idea that sometimes when you're trying to feel that relief, the thing that you have to do is you have to break the cycle. You have to find a way to actually reset what's causing that issue. You have to find a way to kind of recalibrate things. Because as I mentioned before, many of us, when we started our businesses, were excited. We were looking at the possibilities. We were full of just, the potential. But along the way, stuff happened to us. And for all of us, stuff happens to us, which, we can't always control. Sometimes there are things that happen to us. And just because, life definitely throws us, as they say, some curveballs. And what we have to do at times is reconnect with what that was and see if we can right that wrong or realign those issues? Or are there ways that we can maybe jump back into the driver's seat to actually reset or rewrite, kind of the story as we move forward? So the first thing I always want you to do is, if you are feeling like you're in a rut, you're stuck, you're feeling a little bit of that negative cloud over you, as I want you to spend some time understanding the root cause of it. Now, the reason I bring this up is, for many of us, we're all about grinding and getting the work done and pushing forward. You hear a lot about that when people talk about being an entrepreneur, when people talk about following your dreams, when people talk about the work that needs to be done. And what can happen at times is we kind of push our feelings to the side. We kind of say, yeah, I'm feeling this, but I got to get this email out. Or I'm feeling this, but I got to get this social media post done. Or, yeah, this is happening, but what I don't have time to feel this. But what happens is, because we push it to the side, it's not that we aren't feeling it anymore. We just kind of pushed it out of our priority system. And worst case, what we ended up doing is we didn't address it. So, what I want you to do today, as you're either watching this as a replay, is take a pulse of how you feel. Get a sense of what is happening. Are you dealing with that imposter syndrome that we all struggle with, where we kind of feel like, ugh, I don't know if I can charge. I don't know if I'm the right person for this. What if people don't see my value or understand my value? Then, if that's what you're dealing with and you're feeling, let's address it. Let's come up with a plan to actually get you in a path so you feel more confident, feel more comfortable. Doesn't mean that you'll never feel it again. It doesn't mean that we're just wiping it away. And I also don't want to make it sound like it's not a valid feeling for people to have. You have to deal with your feelings, and they're valid. But what I want you to do is start to put a process in place so that we can break that cycle, so that we're not talking 2 months from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, and you're still feeling that. We have to make sure we put a plan in place. The other thing that happens a lot of times is people don't feel appreciated in what they've done. And what I mean by that is, what happens is, many of us were working so hard, but because we're working so hard, all we can feel is the pain of it. All we can feel is the stress of it. And what I want you to do is make sure that if you're a person that needs that recognition, whether it's from friends, family, colleague, the community, or individuals or customers, then I want you to put a process in place to actually get the recognition you need, because it's something that you need. That's something that's important to you. And I don't want to make it sound like it doesn't matter, because it does. And what I want you to do is sit down and say, if you need it, ask for it. Ask people to give it to you. Ask people. And I don't mean to put you in a position where you feel like, I don't want to beg people to appreciate what I do. What I want you to do instead is, I want you to be willing to say to people, or say to individuals, like, I really did something big and I wanted to tell someone about it. Or, I was hoping that other people knew about it because I was really excited about it. And it's one of those things where maybe not everyone knows. And let people, allow people to appreciate and recognize you, because sometimes we get too humble. Sometimes we get into a place where we get too deep in our business and people just don't know the great things that we're doing. So therefore, they don't even know how to recognize us. The other thing is, sometimes you just get disappointed in your business. And I say that because there's progress that we need to make. There's progress that needs to be done. And for especially many of us as vegans, when we look at the world, we're like, you know what? I need this world to be better and stronger. I want more people to be vegan. I'm going to save more animals. Even everything we're looking at in the news these days, it can be discouraging because it can feel like progress is not moving fast enough. And what can happen is that disappointment can set in. And what we've done as an individual is you've created a process where you defined success in a mode or in a way that's not 100% either in your control. So, therefore, when you define success in a way that is maybe beyond what you can do in a week, what you can do in a month, what you can do this year, you may never feel like you can tap into it. You may not feel like you hit a success. So, sometimes I want you to change how you measure success in your business and the work you're doing and the impact. And I don't mean change it like we're trying to set up stuff that, doesn't matter. I want you to pick a goal that is something you can obtain, something that you can achieve, something that's an indicator that you're headed on the right path, and something that's not too big and too global that you feel almost disconnected from the solution as well as disconnected from the work you're doing. The next three on the other side that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to kind of talk about them in a group, because one thing that I think happens sometimes when we're running our businesses is that we get unsure. All this new tools are coming out, all this new technology is coming at many of us, new ways, even new concepts. I struggle with, the clean meat in the vegan community. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about it. How do I want to support it? And what happens sometimes is we start to gravitate towards the things we're unsure of. We start to feel those hesitational, I don't know what I want to do or how I want to do it, or we lose a little bit of confidence. And at times, what I want you to do is I want to make sure that there's always things that we are not confident about and not sure. But I don't want you to spend too much of your day and too many hours, thinking about that. Because what can happen sometimes is we put too much of our time on what we don't know, as opposed to focusing on what we do know and how what we do know can move us forward. How, for the things that I do believe in, the campaigns and projects that I can work on, the topics that I can do, the technology that I can manage, what I want you to do is make sure that you're shifting your mindset and making sure that when you start your week, when you work on a project, when you consider what needs to be done, you don't focus on what you don't know, you focus on what you do, and you find a solution that works in your lane. The other thing is sometimes you got to change up the pace. And this is a big one that's happened to me. I change up my office a lot. If you look at a lot of my videos, you'll see the difference. And the reason I change up my workspace, as an example, is because I kind of work in the same office all the time, and I work a good amount of hours. And what can happen is you kind of get stuck in the way things are. You need something fresh, especially with us living in this kind of pandemic world. Many of us have been home more often than we've ever been in years. Many of us are not traveling like we were, so that had that break in our day, in our week, in our month. I'm even finding that we're just not doing the same amount of events that we used to do outside of the home. So therefore, it's kind of like I see my office, I see the house, I'm seeing the same stuff all the time. And what can happen is you can start to feel closed in. You can start to feel like it's all just the same. It's all just the same work. And that's how you lose your motivation. So I highly recommend wherever you work, switch it up. If you're a person that works in the kitchen, work in the living room for a couple of weeks. Just change that setting. Sometimes can just change your perspective, and especially on your subconscious level. Even if you work in an office space or you have a room or something like that, change it up. Move your desk in a different way or a different place. Set things up. Like for me, I'm starting to stand more than sit. Like right now, I'm standing when I do my presentations, when I do all my meetings. Now I stand. It just gives me a different pace to my day. It gives me a different feel and a different energy level. And I really find that can help when you're trying to change kind of the outlook of your actual work. And then finally, last thing I want to mention is we all need breaks. And I know we talk about taking a break, but we don't make it happen a lot of times. And especially for many of us who haven't maybe traveled like we used to, even travel to see family and friends, what happens is we kind of feel like there's no boundary between work and home. Like it all just kind of blends together. And one thing that I find is so, so important is that if you're feeling that overwhelm, feeling that rut you're in, make sure you take a day off. And I don't mean take a few hours off here and there. I don't mean say I'm going to take Sunday off. I mean take a day off. Pick a Monday, a Tuesday, like an actual day during the week, because I want you to feel what it's like to have that relief. I also want you to remember that for many of us, we're in charge. We're the ones who can make that call. So I want you to empower yourself again to realize that I can take a day off. Yes, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying you're not going to have to shift things around. You may not have to plan for it. But I don't want you to think that every day you have to carry the workload. And what you need is you need a 3-day weekend. When I say a 3-day weekend, You can wrap it into like a traditional weekend, but pick your own 3-day weekend. Like don't wait until a specific holiday and do a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and have some days where you're not working. I don't mean I'm going to do a little bit of work and then take off. I mean, not working so it's not in your head all day. You're not thinking about the tasks, thinking about the things you have to do. You need that relief so you know what it's like when you are focused and grind, and then the other times when you're actually making sure that you are taking care of yourself. All right. Now, I know that was a lot. That was just tip number one. But I like to do this because not all of these are going to apply to everyone. Not everyone's going to resonate with all of these. But I want you to see if there's one that does. Because if one of these does, if one of these can help you, that's the win. And what I want you to do is focus on it and see if you can find a way forward. And make sure you have a plan. And even if it's small, sounds small and simple, like I said, you work normally in the kitchen nook, go into the dining room nook and work in there. It's amazing how these small changes can make a difference. And I want to make sure you do it. And then the other thing I just want to mention, especially when we think about the mental, the mindset, the shift that sometimes has to happen so we feel relief in our business, is sometimes we have to allow ourselves to feel the pain, feel the frustration, feel the disappointment, be upset about something that someone did or someone said or something that happened, but we have to be able to also release it. And what can happen sometimes is we can hold on to it. Or I found myself doing this like, was it last week or maybe the week before? I can't remember. But like something happened that kind of bugged me. And instead of me like letting it go, I basically told like 6 different people the entire story over and over and over and over. And I was like, I can't believe this happened and this person did it. Then I told the next person, I can't believe this happened and this did it. And what was happening is I was reliving the annoyance and the frustration. And while it was good for me to be able to vent, I started to get into a habit where I was maybe beyond releasing it. I was almost showing and, almost a little bit maybe kind of doing a fight back tactic of like, folding my arms. And what I realized is I was keeping the negativity alive. I was keeping that frustration alive. I was passing it into multiple conversations with people. And therefore, when I talk about my business, especially when that happened, everyone had the perspective that my business is getting on my nerves, or that this is bothering me. And that's not the right perspective. That's not really how I felt. But what happened is I allowed myself to get a little bit too consumed with what happened. And if you don't have a way to kind of release it and truly let it go, you can carry a bad experience, you can carry a mistake, or you can carry something that someone did that you didn't like with you and bring your own dark cloud your own way. So I just wanted to mention that because I fell into that the other day, and I know how it can be easy to keep the frustration alive. All right, so let's go to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is spending time with your customers and your prospects. If you have a nonprofit, this means maybe spending time with your donors. Sometimes this is spending time with the people that you help and support. And I bring this up because for most of us in our business, we get so busy with the back office of running our business that we don't get out and talk to people enough. We forget how important it is to talk to our customers, especially if we haven't talked to them in a while. And what I mean by this is the people that know and love you, the people that support you, the people that enjoy learning from you, those people can re-inspire you again. Those people are in your tribe and they can help you find that joy again because they'll remind you of what you meant to them, what your product meant to them. And sometimes what you have to do is you have to reconnect. And that may mean setting up some check-in sessions. I did this yesterday. We did office hours, and the office hours were open to a lot of my students who are in some of my online courses, some of the people I hadn't even talked to in months. And it was so great to see them yesterday because I hadn't talked to them in a while. It was great to hear how they were progressing. What are some of the things they're struggling with? Some of it, I gave recommendations and ideas, and some of it was we just even celebrated a win. Someone had a great story about how they helped somebody changed their lives by helping them transition to a whole foods plant-based diet. And it was just a wonderful experience, not just for them. They said they loved it, but for me too, because it reminded me of who I've been working with all these years. It reminded me of the work that we've been doing. It reminded me that the impact that potentially myself, my team, the business is making. And also, it reminded me of the actual people that make me smile. And I think sometimes we get caught in, paperwork and emails and posting to social media and creating graphics, that we don't get that touch and that like electricity, especially, as we're still doing a lot of stuff online, that you can actually make happen in your business or organization. So set up a Zoom call with customers, set up a Zoom call with people who worked with you, set up a session. And I don't mean it's a marketing session or a product session or you're selling something. I mean it as a check-in and say, hey, we've been working together for the last year, or hey, you've been a part of my community for the last year. I'd love to just get on the call and see how you're doing. Very informal, and let's talk to each other. I find that's a great way to get inspired. The other thing is sometimes I like to do focus groups. So say you're coming out with a new product, a new service, a new way of doing your business. And instead of you figuring it out all on your own, ask previous customers if they'd be willing to come to a session and give you feedback. Say you're launching with a new website, say you have a physical product prototype, even if you're doing a cookbook, you're writing a cookbook or writing a book. See if people would come to a reading session, especially if you're going to maybe read them, a couple of sections from your book, and people are going to listen and give you feedback. If it's a cookbook, maybe you're going to show people some of the recipes, what you're planning on doing, getting some feedback. Maybe you're trying to decide, should I put these recipes in versus these recipes, or which recipes should I put photos in? All of these things your customers, your community can help you decide on. And what happens is when you hear their feedback, it can sometimes help you feel like you're not alone and not just kind of navigating this whole world by yourself. And then the last thing I love to do is I like to follow up with people who did become my customer. Because for a lot of different reasons, people don't become your customer just because of its timing, just because there's a lot going on, just because, they're busy or anything that can happen. So often the people that don't sign up for one of my programs or one of my systems, or I notice that they looked at one of our courses and didn't sign up, sometimes I'll just drop them a note and ask them how they're doing. And if there's something I can do to help them, not sell them, not put links in there, not say buy now, but just send a note and say, hey, we haven't talked in a while. How are things going? Let me know if there's anything I can do for you. And you'll be surprised the people that respond. You'll be surprised the stories that you hear. You'll also be surprised some people who never became your customer, you still impacted them. You still helped them. And it's nice to see those messages and get that dialogue going so that your inbox is not just full of to-do tasks, your inbox becomes full or has emails and messages that are engaging, that are exciting, and they're about people who want to talk to you and appreciate you. All right. Tip number 3. When you're setting targets for your business, when you're saying what I want to do this year, what do I want to accomplish this year, I want you to make sure you set a target that you can actually achieve. And what I mean by that is sometimes we look at other people's like social media. Sometimes we look at what other people are doing and we're like, I want to do that. And I think it's great. I want you to be aspirational. I want you to think about like, where can I go and what can I do and how can I do it? Absolutely. But I also want you to realize that you need something that you can do from where you are. So when you set a target, instead of thinking about where they are and then setting your target, instead, and these are just examples of growth targets when I help people, create a column that says, where are you currently? If you're looking at like a monthly revenue number, where are you currently? Are you making $1,000 a month? Are you making $5,000 a month? Making $10,000 a month? And I'm just using these as examples because I know everyone has different numbers. But if you're making $1,000 a month right now, setting a target of $10,000 is huge. I want you to get there, but what I'd rather you do is say, where am I now? And what's my target? And then what's my stretch? And that big, big, big dream number, put it in the stretch column because I don't want to lose it and I want you to work towards it. But I also want you to have a number in here that feels like you can obtain it. It doesn't feel like, oh my goodness, I don't know how I'm going to get there. Because if you start with that feeling, that's how you feel the stress, the pressure. And that's when the joy starts to leave, because it feels like, oh my gosh, I just, created this scenario that I don't feel like I can do it. And I don't want your goals and your targets and your dreams to turn against you. They're supposed to motivate you and push you forward. They're not supposed to be the thing that makes you kind of wake up in the morning and just cringe. So I want to show you an example. Like, say, for example, you're building your business and you're like, you know what? I need more customers. Great. You need more customers. But before you need more customers, you need more leads. You need people who are signing up, people who are asking to speak with you. You need people who are clicking on your website. You need people who are showing up on your sales page. So when you start to think about your business and say, all right, I don't have any leads right now, so my current is 0. Be okay with putting that on the page, because I think sometimes we feel bad of like where we start, but everyone starts at 0. Even in social media, we all started at 0. Email marketing, we all started at 0 and we built from there. So put down your current and then say what your target is. And I did an example here where if you're starting from 0, maybe jump to 5, because I want you to find a way and feel confident that I think I can get to 5. Because once you get to 5, the learning that happens from 0 to 5, even though it looks like it's a small jump, is a huge learning exercise, because you've proven to yourself that you can actually do it. And when you prove to yourself that you can do it, then going from 5 to 20 is just scaling what you've done. So make sure when you're building these targets, you're building them in a way that it allows you to learn between your current state and your target. And then from your target to your stretch, it's all about scaling at that point. All right, let's move on to number 4. All right, what I want to do when I talk about number 4 is I want to talk about celebration. I want to talk about that ritual, that idea around what do you do to make sure that if big stuff happens or even small stuff happens, how do you celebrate it? How do you appreciate what you've done? What do you do? And actually, I'm going to ask in the comments, for my crew that's live with me. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining. Do you have a ritual around celebrating? Like, do you have, and just let me know in the chat if you do, and if you want to share. But the reason I ask this is, for a lot of us, we think about what has to get done. We don't take that minute to say, if I finished this big project, if I launched my first course, if I got, going back to those targets, my first 5 leads, if I had moved from my monthly revenue from 1,000 to 2,500, if I hit some of these numbers, if I did some of these things, if I wrote my book, what do I do at the end? Like, how do I mark that success? And for many of us, in other things we do, we mark those success moments very naturally. Birthdays, anniversaries, when we run in a 5K or marathon, they give us a little medal at the end. There's very natural things that we do and habits that we have. But in our businesses, sometimes we don't set up those habits. Sometimes we don't set up that process where we are actually making sure that we celebrate what we do. Making sure that when good stuff happens, we tell people about it. When good stuff happens, we do something special for ourselves. Order some flowers for yourself. At the bottom of my little treat says a local vegan bakery here, and they make such good stuff. So, go out for a treat, or let people know. This is one thing that I started to do last year. I have to do a better job this year, but last year I would write emails and I would let people know that, hey, this is some of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes that you may not know about, that we were able to do. And it can be so refreshing to let people know what you've done. Plus, people learn from what you do. People feel inspired from your accomplishments. So you might even help a customer, a client, a prospect, or someone in your community, as well as if you have a good revenue success, why not donate to your favorite animal rights organization? Why not offer a free service or do something that allows you to give back to your community? These are ways that you can do something that will make you feel good about that accomplishment and mark it with an actual memory, which I think is so crucial and so important as you're moving forward. All right. Number 5. Now, I'm just going to run through all of these because we have a smaller group on our live session today. So I'm just going to run through all of these because I want to give you guys the context. And then what we'll do is I'll jump off the live stream and then we'll sit down kind of together, put everybody on camera, and then we can talk through these ideas. So I just want to make sure you knew I wasn't going to just talk the whole time. I just want to make sure I give you this background and then we will dive in and chit chat as a group towards the end. Okay. All right. So we got a couple more left. Number 5 in the list. This is about identifying a win of the week. Now, the reason I call this, oh, wait a minute. Oh, that title is actually wrong. I'm going to scratch that. It looked like my slides out of order. This one is about how you organize and how you set up your week for success. All right. So when you're setting up your week, when you're organizing your week for success, what I find for a lot of us is our week is driven by your emails. Our week is driven by the meetings that people book. Our meetings are driven externally. So what other people are doing, saying, and what's happening can sometimes dictate what we work on. And what I want you to do a little bit differently in your business is I want you to start to take power back into your week. I want you to start to say, all right, I know I got to get a lot of stuff done, but instead of each day just being kind of a day of everything, start to set aside days for specific things. If anyone's a coach or they do a lot of meetings, set aside meeting days. So instead of meeting 5 days a week, meet with people 3 days a week. So Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays for me are my meeting days. I also like to set aside what I call the grind day. My grind day is my day I get a ton of tactical work done. I don't try to get tactical work done on the same days I do meetings because they're different energy. They're different pieces of my brain, it feels like, that are needed. And therefore, I separate out the grind, which tends to be my Mondays, from my meeting days. And on the grind days, I'm working with my team. I'm setting up processes. I'm writing out agendas. I'm working on certain projects, and so forth. So for you, if it makes sense and you need a day that's just a work uninterrupted day, or even half day, is designate a day of the week for those things so it can get done. Now, for some of us, we spend a lot of time with outreach. We're talking to individuals, we're talking to donors, we're doing collaborations, working with other individuals, and we need days to be reaching out to people, whether it's via email, whether it's phone calls, whether it's jumping on direct messaging, and you're really kind of having that networking experience or that opportunity where you just need time to be kind of talking with individuals. A little bit different than a meeting day because it's more you going external, where a meeting day are going to be kind of pre-scheduled. If you have that kind of business, if you are that kind of person, set aside a day for that or even a half a day for it. And you get the idea. Some of us need planning days each week because we have to do a lot of big plans. Some of us need team organize or days that organize our week or our month and set aside those things. And what I find is when I start to create some process around my week isn't just this jumble of stuff. My week becomes days that, especially with that grind day on day number 1, I start to have a different level of success. Because on day 1, I'm grinding through a lot of tasks. So before I even get into my first meeting of the week, I often have an accomplishment for the week. I often have something I've gotten done that was important to me in the business. I've often gotten something done that was important to a client or prepared me for those meetings. And therefore, my Monday becomes a success day for me. And that's another way to bring joy back into your business. Because instead of thinking of like Friday as the finish line day, as Friday of like after you've gone through all the exhausting things of the day and you're like, all right, I'm gonna try to get everything done. What I want you to start to think about instead is how can each day become a day that the success of that day is based on the focus of that day. So if it's a grind day, the focus are getting tasks done. If it's a meeting day, it's supporting customers, supporting clients, getting them ready. And this is an example of mine. That's why there's so many meeting days. For some of you, you're going to swap out meeting days for outreach days. You're going to swap out days for planning days. You may even swap out days for events and activities you do. I also have what I call my open format day on Friday, which is a day that sometimes I'm going to work those days and sometimes I'm going to take off so that I can do, personal stuff where you need a weekday to get it done, like go to the doctors or stuff like that. And then I even give my weekends days. Saturday is my free day. It's supposed to be my day where I'm not thinking about work every minute of the day. And then on Sunday is my flex day because often at night or some point during Sunday, I'm going to do a couple of tasks that might prepare me for the next week. Yes, there was a question that came up that can you combine? Absolutely. You can have a grind day and a project day. Absolutely. I wouldn't combine having like 3 or 4, maybe about 2, because what we're not trying to do is lock down your whole day. We're just trying to say, what is that day focused on? So absolutely, you can combine them. And that's how I started. A lot of times when I wasn't sure what I wanted to do on which day, I built out this whole plan. So there's actually a whole calendar here where not only do I dedicate the day, but then even certain times of the day, I'll even allocate for things. So on my grind day, I have a couple of like what I call project blocks. So it's not so much a project day, but there's definitely a project block in there because that's one thing I've found that works well for me. Oh, cool, Nancy. Oh, congratulations that you have a new market starting in April. That is super exciting. Can't wait to hear more. All right. The other thing I want to mention in here is it's also not just what you want to focus on that day, but we need to make sure your mornings are set up with these amazing routines that kind of feed your soul, make you feel good, What can tend to happen for many of us, and I know this is a habit of mine. Like I roll over, I grab my phone, I start checking and be like, what did I miss? Like I kind of used to start my day like, what happened since I've been asleep? And what I started to do differently is start to say, okay, not only, yeah, I got to get to email. Yeah, I got to make sure nothing's on fire. But what would I want to do with my day if it was my day? Which sounds weird, but it used to not feel like it was my day. So what I started to do is just write it down. Say, well, what time do I want to wake up each day? Now I also set like a bedtime as well to make sure I get a good amount of sleep. And then I say, okay, if I wake up, what am I going to do first thing? Like, what's my big thing? And for me, it was walking and working out. For some of you, maybe something different. Maybe it's your morning coffee, morning tea. Maybe you walk the dog. Maybe you do something like that. But something that gets you moving. That's what I love to do in the morning. It's something. My husband and I even started this habit where we would stretch in the morning, which was really good because I was working out so much. So I was getting stiff because I'm getting older. So think about things like that you can do in the morning that are not work related, but give you a mental break and give you what you need to get ready for the morning. And then I have what I call my morning prep. Now, I'm not so great on this yet. This is one that I'm still feeling out what my new process is. And I say that because I normally find a great process. And after a while, my business changes, things change, the weather changes, all that good stuff. And then I tweak it. So right now I'm in one of my tweak modes. But when you think about your morning prep, and this is before you go like deep into work, what do you use to kind of inspire yourself in the morning? I love podcasts. And they can be short ones, 10-minute, 15-minute ones, whether it's a affirmation podcast, whether it's a short story podcast, whether it's a podcast that maybe is just, anyway, maybe your favorite celebrity does a podcast, something like that. I would highly recommend you listen to in the morning because what it's doing is it's feeding your creativity. It's doing something you like and you're taking a moment for yourself. I'm not talking about hours of it. This is just a little bit, 10, 15 minutes to make sure that you're doing something for you before you give to the world when you start working in your business. The other thing, and this is the thing I'm working on now, is I try to do a prep for the day in the morning. I'm finding that the day is just so crazy. Like right now, I probably should show you my bowl that's sitting on the side with my lunch. And what I find is I just run out of time. And then sometimes I'm working all day long and I just don't eat. And what I want to do is I want to do a better job of that because I really need to eat healthy. I don't want to get to the point where I'm starving at the end of the night, all that good stuff. Music is a big thing for me. Some people like to do it in the mornings. That's why I mention this. One of my new things I've started to do, which I really have been enjoying, is I have one of those like Amazon like dots on the wall. You can do this with your phone. If you use Siri, you can do this with Google, especially if you have any of those devices that do automation, and you can set a schedule. And for me, at 7:30 at night, I have songs that play. And the reason I do that is it's just a reminder for me. For me, I normally work until about 7 o'clock. That's supposed to be my cutoff time. So by 7:30, music comes on to remind me in case I lose track of time. Music comes on, which is a song I love and a song that just makes me smile. A song I sing along to most of the time, but it comes on at 7:30, and it's just a little nudge for me to kind of say, "Hey, Steph, it's time to wrap it up for the day." And I find that really helps me. And also, it doesn't become like an abrupt into my day. It doesn't become a like, like somebody coming in and saying, "Hey, stop working." Um, yeah, alarms are good too. But the only thing about alarms is alarms can be jolting at times. Alarms can feel like, oh, I got it. It like makes you kind of doesn't give you that smooth transition. Now, 10 p.m. at night, I'm going to recommend that you have something a little bit earlier in the night. But I love it. I appreciate it, Nancy. Nancy's like, I appreciate and love that jolt. Then definitely go for it. I just started doing a little bit with my music because I've been finding that it puts me in a positive mood. It transitions me from sometimes the reason I'm like in a zone at 7:30 is I'm so deep that I find sometimes having that like music comes on brings me back into a different mood and a different perspective. Yeah, definitely. Deanna, I'm so glad you said that. I find what happens is we do forget to wind ourselves down. We're like almost like wound up in our businesses and then we just go to the next thing. Or one thing I used to do all the time is I used to take like my computer and my tablet and all these things to bed. And then I'd be sitting in bed working and working and working until I pass out. And then my husband would come to bed and I just have like devices laid all over the bed. And he'd have to pick them all up, put them away. So I'm trying to change that, not just in work, but also, change that in what I do at night. All right. Number 6 on the list, contain the mundane. There's so much mundane stuff we have to do in our businesses. There's so many little things we have to do over and over and over and over and over and over. And we don't have enough time to go through all of these, but while we have the discussion, I can bring this back up. But one thing I want you to start to think about is there something I can do in my business that the things that just feel like a drag, but I have to do them, can I do them in a different way? Can I set up templates for them? Can I batch that content? I tend to write a lot of my emails at once, like we planned all of my podcasts for the year. Not the ones I interview, but the ones where I speak. All of the webinars are planned for the year. It's a little bit tense the day or two that we work on it, but it's so much relief for the rest of the year because I know it's done. I know it's planned. I know it's written. It's amazing. And that's the thing I was surprised about today is one of our reminders didn't go out because we normally set all those up in the beginning of the year. So I got to go check and see what happened. But most of these things, we do them early in the year. So the entire year is free of the stress of, did we do this? Did we do that? What about this? What about that? So start to think about that. See if there's a way you can batch. See if there's a way you can create workflows so you understand all of your steps and statuses. See if there's a way you can use tech. Recently, someone on my team, she's just been an amazing, amazing, amazing blessing for our team. She came up with a tool that we can use to help us automate. And I've been automating a lot of things, but like one thing I didn't automate is for all of our podcasts. We have 4 podcasts, just so you know, by the way. And with all my podcasts, I do anywhere from like 6 to 8 episodes in a month. We have to create Google Drive folders for each one of them. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot of work, but to do that every single month and someone manually going in and creating folders, adding in the sheets, putting in the show notes, doing all that stuff, guess what? It could be automated. I didn't even think about that. I didn't think that I could use automation to create the folder, to take the text and put it into the document, to create the folders with a consistent name. And what we found is since that can be all automated, now somebody who was just doing that 8 times every single month doesn't have to do that anymore. That saves time, that saves frustration. That takes those like mundane tasks and it literally moves it into something that's done and done. Okay. And then the last thing I guess I want to leave you with is The thing I love, love, love to do is every week I pick my win of the week. I sit down and say, what is the thing that I want to get done this week that will be a win? And I figure that out on Monday. And the idea is I'm going to get it complete by Friday. Now, I mentioned earlier, most of the time for me, I pick my win on Monday and I normally knock it out on Monday because it's my grind day. Now, for others, it may not be your grind day, so it's going to work a little bit differently for you. But for me, I really like and I highly recommend for all of you is to think of your Monday as a day for you to pick something that you're going to complete by Friday. Now, I don't mean I'm going to complete my website. I can't complete a website in 7 days. I want you to pick something that you can complete this week. And what I want you to do is think about what that win can be to help you um, increase the revenue in your business, impact the customer in a better way, reduce rework or save time. Or what I've been doing a lot lately, because we've been expanding our team, is documenting a process so I could delegate a task. What I found is I couldn't delegate things because it wasn't written down, it was all in my brain. So on the left-hand side of the page, I decided to give you some examples of stuff that I get done in a week. And this is what I'm going to ask everyone to do right before we kind of break up into on screen and answer any questions about today is what's your win for this week? Like, do you have an idea of what you want to get done this week? That would be a win. That would circle back to that situation where you would have a mini celebration. That would circle back to that idea that you could start to feel a little bit of that accomplishment, a little bit of that appreciation, a little bit of that good feeling in your business. So I'm going to ask everyone, if you want to share it, you can definitely share it, but just let me know in the comments if you feel like you've set up a win for this week. And the reason I say this is by having that focus win, it ensures you don't get bogged down in the tactical stuff. You can say what you want to do, and then you do what you want to do. You start to feel that power dynamic. You start to feel empowered, is probably a better way to say it. And sometimes it's real tactical. It sounds tactical, but it's important stuff. Like I'll sit down and say, okay, this week I'm going to work on all my invoices, my contracts, my proposals, everything that needs to get done for anyone who is owed anything. I'm going to knock those out. I also tend to do invoicing about once a month. Sometimes I'll do it twice a month. But the idea is it'll be one of my big things to get done for that week. And I find those are important because what I used to do is kind of get to invoicing when I could, and then I get behind. I'd be a week behind, I'd be 2 weeks behind, or I would have to combine 2 invoices because I forgot. So by me sitting down and saying, hey, for this month, this week is the week I'm going to get all my invoicing, all my contracting and everything set up. And the reason I can do that for the month is I have software, and which you can even do it with Google, is that I have emails that I'll prepare and they'll be sent next week when the invoice is supposed to go out, or it'll be sent next week or next, in 2 weeks when the contract is supposed to go out. So I'll prepare everything this week so that all the emails that need to go out this month, as far as invoicing or information for our clients. Finalizing bookkeeping. This is probably one of my big ones this week. I'm getting ready for tax season here in the US. So bookkeeping, we've already done some initial work. This week is my final to go through all my bookkeeping. And that's the thing is I'm just doing bookkeeping first to make sure it's all done. And then I'll come to taxes. So you have to break up projects sometimes to make sure they're small enough. Sometimes when I have new software that I want to release or set up or have in our team, I'll just create the task that's just set up the software, create the username, create the password, put your logo in there, all that good stuff. And then the next week I'll implement it. So always think about how you can do those things and break things up. And then another thing that we did was for our podcast. When I was doing our Spark podcast for the year, I sat down and say, okay, we're going to load all of our podcasts into the system. We're going to set up the workflow for our podcast for the rest of the year. And I picked a specific week to get that done. So by the end of the week, we could have a big celebration and be proud and happy that we got it done. All right. So those are your 7 tips. Oh my goodness, they took way longer than I thought looking at the time. Sorry about that, guys and gals. I am going to hang here and answer questions. So let's wrap up here on our live broadcast. If you joined us, really appreciate it. I really hope you enjoyed today's session. As always, I tell people to reach out to me in LinkedIn so we can get connected, so I can hear about your business and all the great things that you are doing. I'm going to wrap up today's broadcast and I'm going to jump over to my crew in Zoom and make sure I answer your questions. Make sure that everything we've talked about today is helpful and really can be something that can be impactful. So we'll say goodbye to everybody over in our broadcasting land. I'm just going to wave over to you. And then everyone else in Zoom, hang tight because I'm coming over there so we can chit chat.